Taneytown Planning Commission, please come to order. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. Would you please stand to the pledge of the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Records reflect that all commissioner members are present here this evening. Members should have received the draft minutes of November 28, 2022. Is there any corrections or additions to those minutes?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
I have a question and a correction here. So first, under where Director Hale gave his report, that next line down there, it says the training in Frederick went very something. So I don't know. It's supposed to be well, stupendous, great,
The training for
grand.
everyone,
Depends on your opinion.
very.
Yeah, I see it. But very something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and the question I have, up above there, it mentions that, about the Sewell Farm development and everything. So just for mine, I mean, does the planning, and do we make a recommendation to the town council as to whether they should be considered for the community village designation or not? Is that something that?
Not yet, but
But I mean, we will eventually.
yes.
Okay. That's all I had, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else for the draft minutes? All those in favor of approving the draft minutes as was presented here tonight with the corrections or additions, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Delegation and action items for tonight. First one on there is, how's it pronounced? Bellissimo's Restaurant. Concept site plan presentation. Darrell, would you like to start us off with that? And then,
The Favazas have gone out and got some prints made up, and they're going to do their concept site presentation tonight. So if y'all would come up to the lectern.
have something want to use the easel, go ahead. I'm sorry I took it over, but.
Everybody have a copy of the site plan?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, yes.
Yeah, we have, first of all, Mr. Parker, you and I go back a long time. Here's the new owner of BPR, so you won't see too much more of me. Scott Landis, so he's the new president and general manager of
You'll have some
BPR.
big shoes to fill then.
Yeah, yeah, we go back a whole long time. With me tonight is the owner of Bellissimo's and his wife, the real owner, and Frankie, part of the labor force. Right?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know, you familiar with Bellissimo's? They round several stores around, and what Frank and his family would like to open up is a carry-out business only at 448 East Baltimore Street. It's the old Jim Lefevre property. Yeah, hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at the site plan. And, we're here to entertain any questions. It's carry-out only. We have to create a little bit of parking for some handicap spaces, a ramp to get into the building. And just basically really cleaning up the site to sell carry-out pizza and products.
This is the old one,
Yeah, what generated this?
Yeah, we already applied, we're just waiting.
Yeah. So we're here, we'll try to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, anyone has,
Yeah. So, yeah, I have a question. So there's, it's like 6 parking spots there. Is that, I mean, they offer customers, or is that?
We'll have some employee parking there too.
Yeah.
Couple to the rear. You want to tell them a little bit about, Frank, how the operation would go and how many employees you'd have at any given time?
Yeah,
Go ahead and
we are
speak into it.
basing it on the store we have in New Windsor, which we think is gonna be somewhat like it. And during the week, we have 2 employees and a driver. 3, maybe, depend. So, but they are not normally in the building per se. They come, they go. You know, they pick up the food and they go. So really, at the most, we're gonna have 3, 4 employees. That's most, at the highest point. So I don't think we require too much parking. And I mean, I see that there's 2 handicap spot. I don't know how many handicaps gonna show up. From the experience we have now, once in a while, we might see an handicapped person, but really it's not. I think it's too many. It's like you go to Lowe's, an example. They got like 20, 30 spots for handicap. I mean, handicapped people do home improvement, you know. It's overkill, in my opinion. So, but I'm not here to make the law, I'm here to follow the law. So, whatever you guys think.
Yeah. So I was just curious as to how many, I mean, how many spots do you think you're gonna need for your customers? You know, 4, 5, I mean,
I don't think we need that many because we deliver most of the food. So once in a while, somebody picks it up.
okay.
So it's like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe less, and they're out of there. So really, we don't need that many.
I was kind of thinking, after looking at this, looks like the parking spaces in the back were going to be employees.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yes.
That's my assumption, you know, that's what
Yeah,
I was.
I don't know if this is too early for me to ask. We didn't put it on a plan. I didn't ask to put it on a plan. But is there a possibility that we might be able, if we need more space, where the grass is now, we could put some stone? Is that a possibility, maybe?
Not really.
No.
No, you really, it needs to be shown on this drawing
Yeah,
where you plan on parking. If you plan on parking, then we need to revise the drawing to show parking, the additional parking.
No, I don't think we need it, but I was just it came to my mind.
So the one-way in the back, that's how you're gonna get to the handicap parking spots, right?
Yes.
So the means of egress is off that one-way back out, right?
Down Maryland Drive,
They'll go in.
go in the existing pavement there and cut around, yes.
And what will direct them to that spot?
What will direct them to the handicap spots?
Handicap coming in, you have a sign here at the exit coming back out. But where, is it anything coming in to direct the people, your customers, to those 2 handicapped spots?
there's signs in front of each parking spot.
Yeah, yes.
What was the answer to that?
There's signs at the parking spots.
But that's on the other side of the building, right?
Once you get there, I mean, if you're handicapped, you'll figure out how to get in there.
Okay. So I'm still see only 5 spots,
6 spots.
6 spots. And then, okay, and then the handicap. And then where is your employees parking? Are they gonna park in one of the first 6 up front?
The 2 in the rear most
Like
likely.
I said, Jim,
Okay.
those ones in the
Some of
back.
them might walk there.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I figured the 2 in the rear were probably employees. The parking space on the side there was probably gonna be your pickup guy going in and out, and then the three in the front will probably be for, in the,
Any walk-in traffic or whatever.
Okay.
but then,
How is your deliveries gonna be made?
How?
Yeah, are they coming in
They'll come in.
straight
and
truck, a tractor trailer, or how,
They have cars.
cars?
Yeah.
No delivery of products.
Delivery of
That you're
product.
going to produce
Oh.
pizza with
That happens twice a week.
a box truck.
Yeah, we actually gonna come in
I'm thinking,
where the street is, where we come in.
okay, off Marion Drive.
Yeah, because we're gonna have a room for the employees, and we're also gonna have storage. So they really will come in from the front. That would be better for us.
So is that truck gonna be on East Baltimore Street? Or is
Yeah,
that
I mean,
The truck's gonna park here.
or,
No, on their property in the existing area they have now.
Yeah, and they're just
The
gonna
part-
wheel
the
it
storage,
around.
What you had in that sketch, the storage was in the rear of the building, so it only makes sense for him to,
We have to figure that out, but chances are he's gonna park in where the concrete spot is right now.
behind parking lot
behind.
number 2.
Yeah, and then
Back of the building.
they either go one way, this, upper steps, or they gotta go around if they're going through the front. I'm not sure how it's gonna work out exactly.
While we're in that area, your dumpster, is that gonna be like a roll-off dumpster, or is that gonna be, what do you plan on using there?
We don't really need too much of a dumpster. It might be one of those little ones. But
what we have large enough here, Jim, is for one of them front-end dumpsters.
Yeah.
That goes up over the truck. Pardon me. That's why it's positioned where it is, where the trash truck can come in, pull straight in, lift the thing up, throw it into the back.
Yeah.
And then back out and get out of there.
Okay.
So
and that happens once a week, I guess.
here again, the size of the dumpster, we went for the maximum for the front-end load deal. There's an existing curb cut, if you've been by there, there's an existing curb cut on East Baltimore Street that we're going to use a portion there to get exit on the East Baltimore on that one way.
right?
Yeah.
Any questions down this end?
Really clean up the site, isn't it, Frank? I mean, you wanna make it a nice
Are you gonna have a sign? Because I didn't see anything here about a sign.
sign.
Well, we're not showing it.
It's gonna be on the face of the building.
I like to put it in the front of the building, on a roof, if I can.
It cannot go on the roof.
Hmm?
It cannot go onto the roof.
What
I
he
think
means
you,
by that,
yeah, you must,
can I
So-
explain it? There's a roof on the porch,
yeah.
and on the face of
On the
it
fascia?
is what he's talking about.
Yeah,
On the peak of the.
yeah. On the lower roof, yeah.
Will it work there?
As long as you comply by the square footage. The square footage is pretty small for a sign out there, but people are gonna know where you're at really quick,
Bottom line is, he has to come to you for a sign permit anyway, once he
Yes,
determines what he wants.
Yeah,
So,
Well, we have an existing sign
right.
already that we took it out from another store.
you have to get the square footage and all and go with Daryl and get a permit. You have to, that's a separate application process.
Small in that area. It's not like, shopping center.
We'll see if that works. Otherwise, we gotta get another sign, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
How about, like Mr. Parker was saying, directional signs on the street, Daryl? What are we permitted there to do and not do?
Well, they can be lit. Just one way, somebody had them. I think Dunkin' Donuts had them, but they got tired of people running over them. So I think they just went away.
He'll have to have some small signs for parking for pickup or something like that, or, or walk-up signs, walk up here to this window. Is that all things that Frank's gonna have to permit?
Just the main building side, I think is gonna be what's gonna be permitted, yeah.
Okay.
So there will be some control over how many, the signs. The biggest thing would be the compliance with the lighting that we use. I think Jim's getting out the big book. But you make sure the lighting isn't offensive to neighbors. Yeah, because you're at a restricted general business or restricted business. So you have neighbors on both sides, you really, and across the street.
Well, there wouldn't be a whole lot different than the handicap signs other than park here for pickup, right? Yeah. I mean, you don't even have those over to the other store. But you might need them more.
I think my only concern is that I hope you're going to be really, really busy. And
hope
I
so,
have
too.
it doesn't look like enough parking to me.
Because you like pizza, right?
Honestly, like I say, people,
But
when they pick up, they come in, get the food, and out to go. They don't stay.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah.
So it's
What's gonna be your hours of operation?
hourly, we're gonna be either 10:30 or 11 to 9:30 during the week, and 10 Friday and Saturday, and 9 Sunday.
Okay, so it's 7 days a week, those times, okay.
Yeah, it's a 7-day-a-week operation.
They're giving us a presentation tonight, they're not asking for any approval on this, right?
It's just concept at this point, yeah.
Okay. So does anyone have any?
Frank's had a building permit in the process for quite a while. That's why we're trying to at least get enough information together that they can sign off on the building permit to get some interior wiring done and some walls moved and demolition and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we really need to get the permit.
So the biggest thing in my area is parking. Is that what we're concerned about?
Yes.
Yeah, I just don't want to see a lot of stacking on Murren Drive.
Now, Randy, so you're perilously low, or you're dancing with the 5,000 feet of disturbance at 3,900. What would a couple more parking spots in that to the right-hand side of that do to you?
Along the parallel to the
Yeah.
exit route? No, we can put 2 more spaces in there and stay under the 5,000 square feet. Daryl's referring to most of the county codes and state codes come in at 5,000 square feet of disturbance, so. And that's all grassed area there to the right.
Yeah, it's all grass. I don't care. We can put the whole strip if
We
it's
can put a couple more spaces.
if it fits.
Without being that difficult.
I think it's fair to see it now, then
Yeah.
have issues later on.
Yeah.
I got a question for the builder there, just because I'm not very smart here, but, so how come you have 4,000 PSI concrete for your sign and 3,000 PSI concrete for your road?
Yeah, it's probably a detail they grabbed from another plan. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'm sure that's all it is.
Yeah.
Heavier.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
All right.
Really heavy sign.
He's the builder, ask him.
Okay.
So we can agree on some additional parking spots then on that
No
back.
problem, Jim, we can get a couple in there. Yeah, we'll put in there what we can. We do want to stay under the 5,000 square feet.
Okay. Yep. See what you can do there.
I think that'd be great.
Squeeze in what we
That's a
can.
good idea. That's a good idea. If we could put it alongside there, beautiful.
Okay. Any other comments?
The only concern I have is maybe not the site plan itself, but the Merwin Drive entrance and exiting. It might be a town issue to maybe to make that a entrance only, like one-way type of thing, because if you get too many, there's not much room for 2 cars to pass each other on Merwin
Yeah,
Drive.
Merwin's not a two-way street, so once you guys get in off 140, if you go directly down into your parking lot, because you couldn't take a truck with 8-foot bed and not hit mud when you turn, coming up the hill from, say, this end of town. when you go to make a left to come up to your restaurant on Merwin, so that alley is used a lot. I live there, Bill lives there, Brad lived there, anybody else? Jim almost did on Fairground. But so that alley is used a lot by families. I mean, during the summertime, you'd be amazed at the amount of people that walk by there, probably to buy you milkshakes. But so that alley is not gonna go down real well being used, because it's just 10 or so feet wide.
Yeah.
So if your drivers makes, I get it, you get off 140 down by where the old Sheets was, you can go all the way up to your restaurant, but that would be a problem. The travel for that business coming off 140 would maybe something you guys want to entertain instead of traveling up Merwin, because once you go up Merwin, if it's wet out, that field is real soft. If you're trying to get off the road for someone to come up, that would be a problem for somebody, most vehicles.
I wouldn't
coming-
want this to
coming out this
create an
way,
issue that we would have to be asking for a one-way street there. I'd like to keep that the way it is.
Yeah, that'll be tough.
And I wouldn't want this to force an issue.
Right.
So keep it as it is. And just with the extra parking, that probably eliminates your stacking. That should pretty much take care of the issue.
We're hoping that they use the street, the area to the right there of the building. And if we had a couple of spaces like you're suggesting, Jim, why, hey,
Okay.
I think it'd be a real bonus.
So tomorrow, we're having a pre-submittal bid or meeting with the county. So we're not really upside down here. We're getting the information out so that hopefully, Randy, you can make the changes to that, and whatever information we glean from the county tomorrow, have you guys back up here next month to move them ahead.
Okay, well, if everything gets going like you're saying, then next month, we're beyond the concept plan then.
Yes.
Okay. Jim,
Potentially could approve the concept plan at that point.
yes.
With all the finals
We
on
could do both possibly at the same time, really. Well, it depends if we have all the information back, so I take that back.
Well, this is a little bit unusual. This is one of, maybe the first time we've ever submitted a simplified site plan to the county for review. We're under the 5,000 square foot of disturbance. That's their requirement for submitting a full site plan versus a simplified site plan. So I don't know. I see no reason if we can get the changes back to Darrell here that, man, this thing we ought to give it final approval next month. I mean, geez, we're not talking here about a whole lot.
I guess there's no reason if we get information back from the county, right?
Well, our
I don't know
code,
how many reviews it would have to go through on the county level.
our code doesn't have a simplified site plan process. So if this had been a lower intensity use, it might have been considered for a site plan approval waiver, which we've granted, from time to time where, nobody's building anything substantial. It's not disturbing 5,000 square feet, and the intensity of the proposed use isn't much different than what was there before. Those things, because we don't have a simplified site plan, we've been more accustomed to waiving them where there's not like a big bump in the intensity of the use. I think, here we're talking about a much busier use than it was as a construction office or a dwelling, which is why we, are going through the site plan process. But unlike the county, we don't have, a simple versus full-blown site plan. It's either waive it or go through the whole thing. So that's kind of where we are with it. So, I think, and just thinking about the volume of people that are going to be in and out and the delivery cars and things like that, this is going to, be a little bit of an activity hub. So we kind of need to go through that process and make sure that it's not going to adversely affect the surrounding properties or traffic safety or anything. So,
So would it be appropriate to ask for approval accepting this or approval for distribution? Or is that the step we don't need to go through?
Well, from prior meetings, I think we've talked about trying to not be nailed into approval the first time that you see a plan.
Right.
So we've talked about that, and that's specifically why it wasn't put on for, request for approval, because this is the first time you guys have seen it and the first time it's been discussed publicly.
Okay. All right, then. That's where we'll leave it then.
A month from now, is it possible to have public comment if they wanted to say pros or cons? And is it a possibility that we as a commission can say waive? Or are we automatic because of the increased potential traffic? There's only one option.
Well, Councilman, so once Randy makes the changes here, and again, tomorrow's a big day. We're gonna be working with the county for the conference. And that's gonna bring information that Randy may make changes further from that, but definitely the parking is gonna be the big items you guys have discussed. And we discussed the use of the alley. Hopefully it comes off 140, makes a left into your lot and leads on back onto 140 to preserve that walkway back here. And I'm not being selfish about being my house, but all the kids, the families that walk up and down, my wife and I walk that alley. It's not air conditioned. But all the families that walk up down there, it's a really important key feature for the three developments that touches. So, for safety wise.
Well, we talked about this before. I think I told you.
Yes, sir.
We plan on coming in from the street,
From East Baltimore.
from East Baltimore into I can't pronounce Maryland. And then just to make a left
Yeah.
and get out the other side. Right. So really, we have no business going any other place on that street.
Okay.
Because unless there is a delivery back in there somewhere. Beside that, we have no reason to go back.
Okay.
So it's just only a little bit where our property is. That's it.
Well, back to Lee's question. I don't want to go back and have you come back and ask for a waiver on it. So we need to go through, we got the modified or the site plan. We should move it in the steps that we normally go through. Either accept this as the concept plan, and then when they come back next month, move forward with the next stage.
And ultimately, it seems like we'll wait and see what we learn in the coming weeks,
Right.
because it could develop. Okay, wait and see. Thank you.
So before I ask for the motion to accept this as a concept plan, is there any comments from the floor? If you do, please come forward. Please state your name and
447 East Baltimore Street. There's no parking on the street there. They'll get you real quick. So if 6 parking places in the back isn't going to cut it, so you might as well figure it. Is it going to be a one-way in, one way, and one way back out? Or are we going to make a one-way in and one way out? That's an answer. Something to think
the
about.
alley, what they have here in the back is a one-way out.
Once you get on their property.
Once you get on their property, that
It's-
becomes a
You're
one-way
coming around
out.
and one way out.
And the idea would be if you follow that procedure from the beginning.
Ollie.
But I wouldn't want to make that a one-way, Merwin, a one-way alley.
But there's no parking on the street.
No.
And 6 parking places is no parking places. I know, got a business next door.
So if you have the 6 already, you're going to add, pardon me? 7, and you're going to add 2 more,
Yes, we're gonna, yes.
at least 2 more here on it.
We may add 3.
Okay, so that'll give you 9, possible 10, counting the handicap. Did that sound sufficient?
So I'm counting 6 down to one
8
side.
of them there?
6, 8 plus.
8, and then maybe 3 more.
3
Maybe
more.
11.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah,
what
I'm
they have
sorry,
over
we
New
have 8
Windsor?
there
I mean,
now.
comparing it, he was
Big
comparing it
spaces
to
there
the
now.
New Windsor.
8 spaces there now,
But it's
Jim.
2 handicap.
3, 4,
But
5,
2 of them are
6,
handicapped,
7,
but we
8,
could
right.
convert one of them to a regular space.
The county's gonna tell you how many you gotta have to
I was
have
gonna say,
handicap.
that's,
1 per 50,
Right. I don't know why we had 2 there.
yeah. You need
I've
one,
been to the one in New Windsor. I can't remember. There's parking along the side. There's parking on both sides, right?
on the street, right, Frank?
Yeah, what people do, we have a sign, 15-minute sign in front of the door. They pull up, they come out, they get their food, get back in the car and leave. The parking is right in front of the door.
But there's no park. That
parking-
streeting does have parking on it, right?
Yeah, we have parking in the back of the building also.
All right, well, I think we can move to 11. I think that should be sufficient. That's my opinion. How does the rest of the commission feel?
Just with a guesstimate of the square footage of the building, that would be the appropriate number of spaces based on the parking code.
And how many would that be?
It's 1 parking space per 100 square feet for food services.
How many square feet do we have?
Just looking at what's in here and kind of counting by rectangles, it's about 1,100.
Okay, so that's pretty,
It seems like if you could add 3 parallel to the one-way, that would give 10 if you converted one of the 2 handicap into a non. So 10 plus the 1, 11.
Darryl?
See if 3 parallel spots get you under 5,000.
And plus, just on that code, is for eating and drinking establishments. This really is not that. It's to pick up the food and go. So there's no eating or drinking for the 100 feet per spot. So you're way better to the good.
Do we have any other comments? And I will entertain a motion for concept approval.
So moved.
Motion made by Lee, second by,
Second.
okay, one more thing. You think we should put something in there about the sign so they don't have to come back later for a sign permit if it can't be part of this?
You can make whatever recommendations you want.
Regardless, we have to get a sign permit.
Yeah, we do.
But you would have to come back to us, right?
For the sign, no.
No?
The code does encourage identifying sign locations and details during the site plan process when possible. It doesn't mean that they can't come back later, and they wouldn't have to come to you because it's not like a special exception use or anything like that that is tightly controlled.
So would it be a problem of putting a sign where you're gonna put it, either hanging from the building, whatever?
That's what we were discussing, we'll take care of that.
And Lee, would you agree to that with your motion? Yes. Okay. And Brad?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, motion made by Lee, second by Bradley, for a site plan, concept plan approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Carried. Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
I'll let you fold it up. I'm finished. We have a problem out there with stacking at the donut shop in the morning. Whew. And who would expect that at the beginning? Okay, ordinance and agreements for review. I guess we have none. Planning and zoning report. Darryl, you want to
Sure.
give me a second here for you?
Okay.
Can't find your report. Go ahead.
Okay. So we have a couple comment letters for both Bollinger Park and Storage Today. Storage Today has made incredible progress with their MDE things. So, in fact, in speaking to Bill this afternoon, he was pretty confident that in a week or so, he'd have all approvals for all the MDE stuff. He's still got a few things to work through, but it is flying through the process. Unlike our good friend Bollinger Park, there's still one more major hurdle. And I've been saying that since September, I think. I used to go down once, twice a day and see if the mail was here, and I stopped on that. So, but in any case, so we're getting there on that project, hopefully. Again, still. On West Baltimore Street, what we call the Danner property, what was the Danner property, it's where the billboard is on West Baltimore Street. At the curb, that land was sold and it was subdivided. It was divided and sold, okay? Ward Homes bought both of those lots, and I've issued a permit for the one home. It's a home, it's a model that's in Meadowbrook 5 and 6. It's the Augusta. And that's what's going to be on East Baltimore Street one day and on Westview. So that'd be nice.
Yeah.
So the land's moving, okay? The city manager and I had a couple of meetings with, one with Garnet Ridge to discuss just sewer service, you know, like everybody. More information to come. And Mountain Brook, we discussed the Antrim extension. It's pretty amazing. There's 3 projects rolling around that have one part of the bypass or whatever we're calling it this week. That's pretty cool. And they're all working with us, okay, to preserve something, at least having a conversation. And other than that, that is all I have.
Okay. You want to go on down for any more of these on the construction phase projects or not?
So Meadowbrook 6 and 7, they're all 100% built. They're just cleaning things up now and literally on that. Meadowbrook 7 has all of those have been sold, and I think 3 of them are occupied already. So, and last week when they were they were putting down the grass in the one furthest away from 194, so it may be occupied now. The houses in both Meads and Meadowbrook sold incredibly fast.
Okay.
Sheets still haven't heard, so I called that gentleman, it's been a good 3 months ago. And the wild thing is that not only are we still holding their escrow, they have a $360,000 surety on that building still. And they're not, you know, all they gotta do is give us the right to maintain the stormwater management ponds. That's it. That's it. We're not asking for sheets by Taneytown or anything on the signage. That's all we want is permission to maintain and inspect, or to inspect the stormwater management. But like the gentleman told me, he says, my job is to get one shovel ready and move on to the next one. So hopefully that'll come off soon. Vapco, Jim, I'm not sure why this Vapco is still on there. I don't know if it's something else there.
Probably paperwork detail.
Okay. Paperwork detail, you know, administrative stuff.
So what about on the county side as far as Vapco? Anything more going on with that?
That'll probably be a little bit of a hike. Right now, what is happening at the Vapco is they're redoing their bathroom and cafeteria area. Huge, very nice project. And then they're soon be starting on their office space. And is the number okay for me to talk about? The amount of?
I guess the square footage.
Yeah. Well, that's one I don't know. So anyway, it's a pretty big development for that building. They're going to bring a good many jobs here. The old Browning Farm, that's out in the county still, and that's yeah, that's gonna be a project.
20 crossing, I thought last month we said we could take that off.
Longer than that. So there's a, for us to accept the lighting out there along Harney, or as you come around West Walnut Street and around the Harney, there had to be an easement for us to be able to accept that and maintain that. And yeah, it should have been, I started looking today, like, who's the next person we got to call? But the drawing's been done, I believe.
I thought we were done on that one.
Yeah, but, yeah, so, yeah, I'm hoping to, it's, we're running out of space because we're gonna be adding a couple more on here. So I don't know if I'm gonna do something creative, like, you know, put them side to side or something and, you know, whatever, but anyway. Tannery Barn, I recently called them. Just waiting to hear what the additional land that they purchased. Perhaps, you know, that might be able to get them closer to the, I guess, the stormwater management. They're trying to do it through a lot of vegetative sources, different types of well-type stormwater management. And FP Duffy, I rode out there last week. Has anybody been out there?
Just passed.
All I see is a big mound of dirt. And I don't know what they're, I mean, you know, I'm amazed by the process, but it's not easy to go walk the site to talk to someone because it's, you know, long and it's, you know, but, yeah, so, and remember, that building is being built to house one machine. Yeah, I can't wait to see that. Other than that, Taneytown Affordable Storage, have you all seen that lately? Back in the, it had little twigs and stuff growing up, little baby trees, if you will, all across that front, and there were hundreds of them across that front. So digging that out could not have been fun. But it's all dug out, it's all planted per the agreement that we were able to work with down at the county. And they're waiting on getting pricing for the, which has been hard to do for some reason, for the fence. You know, they want to get it done, but they're just not getting prices back. But it will happen. All right. That's all I have, sir.
All right. Moving to the legal update. Jay, you have anything for us?
Good evening, everyone. I have no report for you tonight. Everything has been focusing on things other than planning and zoning for the past couple months. So, good for you all. Not a lot of stuff coming in the pipeline that way.
Anybody have any questions for Jay? All right. Thank you, Jay. Moving on to the county update. Tiffany?
Good evening. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Right, yep.
All right, we'll start with water sewer. There's usually 2 amendments, spring and fall water sewer amendments. And in 2022, the fall amendment this week is going to go to the Maryland Department of the Environment for approval. And there will be no upcoming spring 2023 amendment because we're going to just focus on the triennial update. And the city's already been working with the county regarding that. The Transportation Master Plan on December 7th, Chapter 5 Corridor and Sub-Area Analysis for Taneytown was presented, so you can watch that online if you'd like. It was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then the Chapter 6 will be discussed during February and March, and that will be focusing on the planned major streets. And I'm not sure when the Taneytown streets will be focused, but I'll let staff know when that's coming up.
Thank you.
We started collecting information for the annual report, been in touch with the city, and they're compiling information to get to us. If you didn't get a copy last year, we do have the annual report. Taneytown is in there, and that is available online with our department, with all of your development as well included in that from last year, from 2021. And now we're doing the 2022 report to get to Maryland Department of Planning by July 1st. The hazard mitigation plan that the city worked with the county on for getting together for FEMA and MDEM did come back with a lot of revisions that need to be made, required and recommended. So the county has met again to review what was what was recommended and required with FEMA to go over what we can do with that. And we're just getting word now about how that meeting went. So we're not sure, but we'll let everybody know. I'm sure they'll be in touch with staff here as well. And the economic development and land use study has kicked off, and that is for, it's the first part of the 2025 General Development Plan or Master Plan for the county. And a little more information on the economic development study. It is to be conducted so the county can get an up-to-date snapshot of where the county currently stands economically in the region and how the county is positioned moving forward to grow and prosper while competing with the many jurisdictions in the regional market. And again, that will become part of the 2025 master plan, and there is a public workshop open to anybody for the study, for the economic development study, and that'll be at the Exploration Commons, which is the basement of the Westminster Library, and that is on February 16th from 5 to 7. Any questions, comments?
Anything?
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Okay, moving to the old business. Sewell Farm discussion on Worthington Boulevard. Someone want to lead us off on that?
So, again, this is one of 3 possible developments that are keeping in mind our bypass or a section of it. And the Worthington Boulevard, part of it is a big chunk of that. And Jim, which point did you want to?
I'm sure a lot of folks up here are not familiar with the Greenway, the bypass, the Worthington Boulevard. So I was going through some of my back files and I found this up there. And plus, I gave you each a copy that's not quite as bright and easy to follow as up there. But I can't tell you when this started, but this goes back to the beginning, whenever the beginning was. And that goes back quite a few years.
So what we refer to as it's been known as the Taneytown Bypass, Route 140 realigned, the Taneytown Greenway, or just plain old Antrim Boulevard, would pick up from where the existing Antrim Boulevard terminates at Trevanian Road, swing around the south side of the city, cross Route 194, and join back up with 140 on the west side of the city, proximate to a little east of Venue Bouchon, that used to be the Havilah, or a little west of Flowserve. From there, Worthington Boulevard would be another planned major street that would pick up from that point and loop around the northwest portion of the city through the Sewell property and others and join up with Fringer Road. So between that and I'll call it Antrim Boulevard, we would have 3/4 of essentially a beltway around the city. So this was envisioned long before I got involved with things. I think it was probably I'm not even going to venture a guess. I've seen some very old documents that have state highway rights of way, and state highway actually still owns some of the little bits and pieces along that planned route. At any rate, the concept that was placed before you for the Sewell Farm has the street that would become a public street shown along the southern edge of the Sewell property, pretty much parallel to the southern edge of their property. That doesn't really, so depending upon what we want that Worthington Boulevard to accomplish, I don't know if the Sewell concept achieves that or not. So if we want that, and the reason that I suppose we're entertaining some discussion here is, as it's laid out on that comprehensive plan map and has been on the last 3 comprehensive plans at least, Worthington Boulevard crosses a substantial floodplain. that would be problematic to constructing the road. You know, we're likely talking about significant costs compared to just being able to build a road. Now we're talking about spanning a floodplain, a big floodplain. So it certainly can be done, but there's a cost, you know, more than just building across a, you know, a level stretch of ground. You know, you can't fill in a floodplain. You don't really want to build a brand new road that's going to be flooded. So the alternative is essentially a bridge, at least to the best of my knowledge. So there may be other options to do it, but any of them is going to be costly, I would imagine. So if we want to stick to that plan, we probably just need to push it farther into the future. It's not even on the current 6-year capital improvement program. It's well beyond that. But if we want to stick with roughly that alignment and just figure out how to cross the floodplain down the road, what's on the Sewell concept doesn't really meet that objective. So if we want Worthington Boulevard to act more like a local collector street and have primarily automobile traffic rather than large truck traffic, and for that road to function more like something like Roth Avenue or Keenan Street. You know, for those of you who maybe aren't real familiar, Keenan Street, it terminates near Roberts Mill Park on Stumptown Road at that point. Actually, it might be right about where Roberts Mill transitions to Stumptown, but near Roberts Mill Park, and it goes all the way out to Route 194. Lots of stop signs, you know, weaves through neighborhoods, but it does provide an alternative to, you know, getting from one side of the city to the other without getting on Route 140. So it functions kind of like a local collector, you know, that all those neighborhoods can feed onto it, and you can get out to Roberts Mill Road or Route 194. If we want this Worthington Boulevard to function like that, what's proposed in the Sewell concept could work like that, but that doesn't achieve what you would think of as a bypass, you know, something that's going to get the truck traffic off of Frederick and York Street potentially in conjunction with Antrim Boulevard. So we need to figure out what the objective is, and you know, advise the Sewell team, you know, that what's in the concept either doesn't do what we need it to or is okay.
In addition to the Sewell property that this concept from long ago would cross, acknowledging there's a floodplain, do you know approximately how many parcels of land owned by different entities it would need to cross, and also how close would it be to the Bollinger Park?
Right. It would, where it connects to Fringer Road, there would be a row of properties between Bollinger Park and where it connects to Fringer Road. I think it crosses, most of the properties there are in agriculture still, although the last one they would cross that fronts Fringer Road has been put into a tree bank. So that's another potential hurdle to get past. I would say probably 5 properties total.
I feel like, I mean, I'm not going to say anything's impossible, but it seems like a tree bank and ag conservation, it seems like that would be a lot in order to build a road, and probably not desirable.
It's sure. It was disappointing to hear that that tree bank was approved, even though a planned major street was going through that property, but it was done, and you know, because it wasn't a conventional development, I don't think it went through the same processes that the same reviews that other I guess more development-oriented projects go through. So it just wasn't on anybody's box to look for a planned major street to go through.
It seems like, and I'm just one individual, it seems like if we were to ever have some relief on 140, it would be the semicircle roughly, that would be south. And it seems like a lot of projects, like you'd mentioned 3 projects that are kind of having the conversation, it seems like they're on the south side. I feel like if we're looking at Taneytown as a clock face from 9 to 12 being the Worthington or this proposed area, I don't necessarily think that that would work out.
I mean, or suggestions would we have there? I mean, looks like the easiest part is getting around on the south side, especially since this other development. But once we get to Harney Road, where do we go from Harney Road?
Right.
I mean, that seems like just to go to Harney Road and stop, where does that get us? The Harney Road.
Right. Now, looking at your map up there, that potentially could, and this, and any new street's going to affect somebody, whether it's undeveloped property or existing, businesses or residences, but if the way the road is depicted on the Sewell concept, you could see that leading more towards the Commerce Street area, that potentially, I don't know, no engineering has gone into this. This is just looking at the bird's eye view of the map. That alignment could be, could maybe facilitate some future connection to Commerce Street, and then via Commerce Street access Route 194. But even that, is not going to do anything like for the truck traffic or anything there. It's still going to be just an alternate route to not be on, those little sections of West Baltimore Street and York Street. I don't know what that really gets us, other than it gives us an alternative. So maybe, 10 years from now, when somebody wants to have a parade through Main Street, we actually have an alternative for a lot of traffic, as opposed to what we have to do now. But but it still doesn't address the truck issue.
How wide a path or how wide of area are we talking about, or do we need for this greenway or bypass or what? Or even if we go to the Worthington Boulevard,
Right.
we'd be downsizing it.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about as far as?
So what's on the comprehensive plan for at least the Greenway or Antrim Boulevard is 160-foot wide right-of-way, which is pretty huge. That was envisioned at the time to include like a parallel multi-purpose trail for, for recreational purposes. And I think that was, basically the Greenway phrase was coined to indicate that this was going to, include this pathway and be heavily landscaped, et cetera, and make it a nice boulevard sort of feel, in addition to, carrying traffic around the city. I don't know that, again, that's what's on the comprehensive plan. If we need to narrow that down to get it built, maybe that's what we need to do to make it more palatable for, say, Mountain Brook Farms or the Sewell property, if we do decide that it needs to make that whole loop or something. If we need to compromise on that 160-foot width to get the job done, maybe we do that. I don't know.
Seems back when Mountain Brook, when that was in the making, we cut that back, or they cut it back at least 2 or 3 times. And I'm thinking it was less than 100 foot, including the buffers. Mr. Glass, you were here when that. Do you have any recollection of what was? Yeah, sorry. Mountain Brook, back when we were talking about Mountain Brook and the bypass, do you remember how many times we reduced the width of the bypass? Do you recall any figures there? Okay, but that's, I mean, if you, what if you would take, even a 100 foot?
Which way you go, you're gonna have two creeks to go across, so you're gonna have a lot of money.
Yeah,
So
the word that, yes.
that 160-foot right-of-way came after some of those Mountain Brook concepts. So, you know, they probably wouldn't have I think that, trying to remember when when the corridor study was done, I think that's when the 160-foot right-of-way width was specified.
Well, that was before 2000, that was like 1990 something, wasn't it?
I think it was after the 1997 comprehensive plan.
Okay.
So I think the 2010 comp plan is the first one that showed the multiple potential alignments and the 160-foot right-of-way. Mountain Brook Farms had a concept in like 2006 or 2007 that did include a segment of the bypass. I don't recall the right-of-way that was on that concept, though, the right-of-way width.
Well, that kind of footage going through the Sewell property would take a heck of a lot of land.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, it may be reasonable to stick with the existing Antrim Boulevard section, you know, with the wide travel lanes and the full width shoulder. That might be, you know, what could be seen as the absolute minimum, because we probably don't want it to get any smaller than the existing road as it goes along. You know, so that might give us some wiggle room.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be, you know, we obviously want to preserve the functionality of it, but again, that 160-foot right-of-way was envisioned to go well beyond the basic idea of a bypass.
Okay. Where do you expect us to go this evening?
So, well, as it pertains to the Sewell property and Worthington Boulevard, you know, do we envision scaling that back to, you know, something that's not going to take, you know, that's not going to basically be a quarter of a beltway? You know, whatever they do, you know, if, as it's laid out now on the Sewell concept, there's no driveways accessing it. So it's really just, you know, basically the shortest segment of public street that they could get from the southern part of the property to the eastern part of the property. And I don't know exactly what that gets us from a transportation benefit.
Jim, is Antrim 60 feet wide? I thought
It may be, I don't remember.
I
Yeah.
read it. It's 60 feet wide. I mean, you know, if you don't have money to returns and that type of thing, you can move a lot of traffic on that.
When did we go from the original idea of the Sewell property to where it is now with so many homes? How did that go about?
Yeah, that, I know I was a bit surprised when they presented the concept that you saw in November, I guess it was. Yeah, because the concept that we had seen during the annexation process preserved the wooded area on the west portion of the property and consolidated the development more on the east side. So that was the first time we'd seen that concept.
If we go back to the original, we got more space to allow for 60, 80, 100-foot. Maybe that's something we should be thinking about or suggesting to the Sewell people.
But the plan that they presented was assuming they're going to get the community village designation, correct?
Yes.
And this plan here doesn't look like that's, was considered.
I think they were annexed in as community village.
Say it
No,
again.
they still need to go through that
Right.
process.
But, yeah, okay.
That's not cut in stone yet, is it?
Yeah, no, it's
Right,
not.
Okay,
right.
okay. Mr. Tillman, you had a comment?
Yeah, I'd like
Please-
to
please
make,
come up to the mic.
make a few comments if I may, and bring a little bit more to this discussion. Chris Tillman at 10 York Street, George's On York Bed and Breakfast, and the Taneytown Chamber of Commerce, covering a lot of fields here. If I may, I'd like to point out a couple of things on the map and go back to the discussion of Worthington Boulevard, because one of the things that really needs to be discussed at this point in time is whether you're going, there's seems to be some movement for closing out the Worthington Boulevard phase. And if you do that and do not make allowances for it in the Sewell Farm, you'll never have that section of the bypass. And the same really kind of applies to Garnet Ridge and what's the Mountain Brook. So if I want to, can I point to the map here a little bit? Apologize for stepping away from the mic, but I kind of want to show you guys some of this. So you've got Sewell Farm here. This is Garnet Ridge, is that correct? This
Yes.
little spot here, and then Mountain Brook is over here.
Yes.
All right, so obviously you've been discussing with the folks at Mountain Brook about some kind of right-of-way. And the Garnet Bean property meeting up with the Sewell property gives you an opportunity to at least create or preserve a corridor here that if you do not do it now, you'll never do it. And this portion of the bypass, taking the 194 traffic out of downtown, will then never happen. And I don't think that we can do that. I think we have to try to maintain some kind of corridor. Now, 160-foot wide right-of-way is a bit excessive. Most of the streets I know in Baltimore County, I'm not sure about Carroll County, but I've done a lot of highway construction in Baltimore County, and a lot of those streets are on 60-foot right-of-ways. The street itself would be 2 12-foot lanes and 2 8 or 10-foot shoulders. So that's 44 feet of pavement width. And if you had curbs and sidewalks, it's 60 feet. You could accommodate all that in a 60-foot right-of-way, although you may need some easements for custom fills. But one of the discussions that was had, and Ms. Whitford and I had this discussion one evening standing in his office. This is the alignment that's on, and this is the area that it's talking about that crosses the wetlands that you would have to bridge. If you came across to this point here where the wetlands narrows and kind of back in the Harney Road, then looped back around it, you could avoid all that wetland. But this again gets up into the tree bank that he was talking about earlier. But I think, the city may have property to be able to trade trees off of in order to preserve the tree bank. And that's a discussion that is down the line, but if we don't at least preserve the corridor, we'll never have it. And one of the other things that you can gain here is a realignment of Harney Road. You could realign that back through the Sewell property and come back here to a squared intersection and get away from this nasty angled intersection here that nobody likes, and it's fairly dangerous. You've got a curve here on 140, you've got the intersection coming in at an angle, you've got bad sight lines. So if it could be presented in that way, that you're solving more than one problem, perhaps that's something to look at and to consider. But you've got a very unique opportunity here because all three of these properties are in the development phase. Regardless of where the state is or anybody is, the county or anyone, in terms of whether or not they're trying to push the bypass through, you've got an opportunity to, at our level, make that preservation happen and at least keep the option open. So if you allow development through here that does not preserve those corridors, then you completely close it out. And essentially doing Taneytown to be just a noisy, busy crossroads with a bunch of developments around it. So I think we have to take this opportunity. If we don't, like I said, you'll never get it again. You know, the ones that's filled with houses, you'll never be able to get through there. But this is your opportunity to get that. And I really encourage you to think about that. Think about making, you know, doing some realigning, thinking about outside of this box of what's shown on this map and say, okay, well, what, can we do something else? Can we solve this problem by going here? Can we solve this problem by doing this? You know, because if we do nothing, we'll get nothing. So I really, you know, very much encourage you to, and, you know, one of the things they showed, you know, the Garnet Ridge connecting possibly with Sewell Farm. You know, and maybe that's a way to get in that way, you know what I mean? It gives you one intersection here, and you can bring it out to Harney Road here. And then later down the line, you know, make a better bridge crossing here and go around and meet back in the Fringer Road. And get, because if you just have a bypass that goes from here, that might clear Baltimore Street, but it does nothing for York Street and Frederick Street. So if you don't get this section, you haven't solved the problem.
The trouble is, the further out we go, the further back Fringer Road, the more issues we'll have on Fringer Road.
Correct. Although if you can get across here, you're coming right back into where it originally planned to anyway.
Yeah.
So if you're skirting the wetlands here to get back to this point, then you're right back
To where we
to
were.
where your plan takes you anyway.
Thank you. I don't think we have any intent of not following through with this in one way or another.
I just wanted to
It's on our master plan, and I think we want to maintain it on our master plan.
you know, because I think about this a lot. You know, I mean, with my business, you know, trucks literally vibrate light bulbs out of their sockets in my house. So, you know, for the long term, for the long haul, you know, don't give up on getting this route through. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, is there any contact that would help us on the state side, the state highway, their engineers, even if you had a conversation with them or, you know, a small office meeting or something to give us some suggestions or ideas what they could bring to us? I mean, they're the experts. They could give us maybe some guidance.
I can certainly reach out. So I think it may be more likely that, you know, if we really want to delve into this more thoroughly, we may need to commission a study on, you know, on options. So that, you know, not something that's going to happen quickly, but, you know, that may be really our best approach.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's not, reaching any conclusion that can then advise the, you know, the developers of the Sewell project which way to go. But, you know, again, we need to be thinking about the city, you know, and the city that's going to be here 50 years from now, and, you know, not necessarily, you know, what the developer wants to do this year. So, you know, that's something that, I mean, we are working on our budget for for FY24, for fiscal year 24 currently, and that may be, you know, that may be a project we need to add to our capital improvement program as we update it concurrent with the budget year. And, you know, maybe we need to put some money in there for a study and really look at the, you know, look at the environmental features and so on, and, you know, come up with some options there.
So I'm assuming there has never been a study done?
Not that I'm aware of on Worthington Boulevard. We have done a corridor study for Antrim Boulevard, and that's what brought those optional, you know, routes onto the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
So is this as far as we can go then tonight for Worthington? I think we need to make sure we don't make decisions on soil property until we get something, a path which we want to follow.
We for sure want to still at least maintain the 60 feet, right? I mean, just because it needs to be a bypass.
Well, even 60 feet, I don't know if that includes buffer. I mean, what you don't want to have the traffic going by a bunch of homes and hearing all the noise without some type of buffer. So I'm not sure what the 60 feet represents other than the paving and the curbing and stuff like that. So that's something we really want to look at.
Okay,
So maybe just keep this on the burner and
okay. Yeah. I
we
think
okay with that, fellas?
Yeah,
But we never really found out why it changed.
No,
no.
I don't, and I guess we'll have to wait.
Okay?
Well,
I think we need a lot of consideration.
That's nothing, because that was never presented, right? Was that presented?
Yes, it was, that's how I got it.
I mean.
But I can't
and they
remember
s-
when.
and they
I
said
remember
this
this
is
was
a
from the
concept plan?
beginning.
Yeah, so they gave it to you and said this is a concept plan?
No,
Yeah,
no,
so it was
it
never
was just a
presented.
presentation. And I can't remember how far back it was, but it was a presentation because it came before this commission.
Jim, you thinking 08-ish or so?
Well,
Who's the
even
engineer?
even the concept that was associated with the annexation agreement preserved the wooded area to the west of the property.
Okay.
So that, as I said, I think some of us were surprised when the concept that was presented to you a couple months ago, basically the entire property, less the kind of the water course area that runs through the middle of it.
Same company.
Yeah. So, all right. I think we'll move on to the next topic.
Okay.
Which is new business, community village ordinance. Oh, on alleys and rear load garages. Okay.
So did y'all get the email that I sent? Okay, awesome. So going forward, I'll probably do that a lot more chance instead of
Okay, yeah.
waiting. If I'm pretty sure that something's not going to change, I can shoot it out, but I'll still give you guys a hard copy for when you get here. Because, it's easier for me, at least, to go
Yep.
through it with paper, so.
So did you guys all get a chance to go through it? So we want to do it like we've gone through the chapters, just go down the list?
If I could maybe take a
Then we
second to
will
sort of
start
set
the lead.
things up.
Okay.
The Mayor and council discussed community village and the alleyways recently, and are willing to entertain some options, to give relief for the developers of having to do the alleyways. The alleys have been receiving mixed reviews, I'll say, since the beginning of Community Village. Certainly from an aesthetic standpoint, they have some benefit. But then if they're going to be accepted by the city, then that's an additional alley that we have to maintain forever. And it also creates, even if you narrow the streets while providing alleys, it still may result in a net increase of impervious pavement, meaning more stormwater management and more challenges there. So aesthetically, it has benefits, but then there are a lot of drawbacks also. So, it's another place we have to push snow. It's another street we have to, mill and overlay every so many years. So there are downsides to it as well. But it appears from what we have heard from multiple builders and developers is that there's not a market for that particular product here. Even though there is, 20 miles down the road, the numbers don't work here, and also builders don't seem to have interest or are telling us that their buyers are not interested in that kind of product in some place like Taneytown, that it works in a more urban area, but the market hasn't
But that was
realized it here yet.
Yeah, that was their study, right? That was the builder's study that's
Well,
telling you that.
I'm sure that it adds upfront cost. But having heard it from multiple developers and builders at this point, you know, I'm more willing to accept that you know, maybe this isn't the place for it right now. So, and also there's been some pushback about, you know, the additional alleys, the additional maintenance ongoing for alleys from the, you know, Public Works Department as well. So the idea that's in here really is just giving relief of the alley requirement and speaking to the, you know, addressing the need for the garages to be rear loaded and things like that, just giving relief for that. It doesn't talk about anything to incentivize the alleys, that, you know, if you do alleys, you can get X number more units squeezed in. You know, and part of the issue with the alleys is the financial equation, I guess, that, you know, to develop the alleys, it raises the cost of the lot per lot that they have to pass on to the builder, that then has to pass it on to the buyer. So what we're hearing is the numbers don't work in our real estate climate right here. So that's kind of the reasoning behind what's before you. And that was just a first attempt at, you know, what we could potentially do to offer relief to the alley requirement.
Someone want to start off going down? We want to do each section at a time and talk about what we got redlined and what we don't, or?
So the red lines are the proposed changes, everything else is what's currently in the,
Right, so so all the changes are in red. The underlined is new text, the strike through is deleted text.
So Dan and you and Lee, you guys have handled the last section very well. You want to start and go through them again?
well, in section D, so that's the first place where you have changes, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I guess this paragraph here are we basically saying you can't park in front of the house? Is that what, I mean,
Right, so,
and how does that compare to like what we just did at Meads Crossing?
okay, so section D is referring to, so an attached dwelling by our code is 3 or more dwellings connected. So typically that's going to be what in Carroll Vista they call a villa, or it could be a stick of townhomes. So the consensus from the mayor and council when we discussed this was to still require alleys for the townhomes, but to have single-family dwellings not have to have the rear-loaded garages and be served by alleys. So it's not completely giving up on the alley, but it's giving relief for all the single-family dwellings. But it's still requiring them for the townhome portions of a community village.
Right.
So what you're saying is if they have a garage in the front, then there's no street parking, right?
Are you saying there's not going to be no garage in the front?
So off-street parking.
Okay,
So
off-street parking.
so driveway
okay.
parking, right, would not be in the front yards of townhouses.
Right, right.
And-
Okay, yeah.
And that's what we have at Meads Crossing now. Everybody's parking in front of
Right.
the townhouse.
Yep.
Right,
So this says, if you got 3 more homes that are attached, the only parking you have, there's going to be no parking in front. You're not going to have a garage that come out of the front. You're not going to have any parking in the front.
right. So any attached dwelling would need to have the alleys or a use in common type situation,
Yep.
or a private drive.
Yeah, so that's the way I read it, and I'm good with it.
Yeah. Okay. Then move to E, where we're striking.
Right, so that's just getting rid of the prohibition for front yard driveways of single-family detached or semi-detached, which is the side-by-side units. So 1 and 2 family buildings get the relief from the front, the prohibition of front driveways. So we're getting them, we're now allowing the driveways to be in front.
So the garage, so in that case, if you have an alley and a garage in the back, there's no parking in front. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
So driveways will be, if you skip the strike through, basically it's saying driveways are prohibited in any front yard setback area of a townhouse or other attached dwelling. So it used to say single families as well.
So
But
if
we're
I'm
giving
visiting,
the
if I'm
single
visiting you,
families
I can't
relief
park
from
in
that.
front? Right?
Well, you could still have street parking,
Right.
but you can't.
Street
The-
parking.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
you can't
prohibited
park
in the
the,
front yard setback area,
Yeah, you can't park in the front yard anymore.
But you can have all street, or, street parking.
street parking, right?
Parking at all.
Yes, none of this talks about street parking specifically.
So if you have a townhome, your garage is gonna be in the back, and you gotta go around back to park, unless you park on the street. So you can't drive right up to your front door like you have out at Meads Crossing.
Right.
And I think that means you can't have a garage in the front either of
Right.
your house, if you have, the, attached townhomes. And I'm good.
I'm not too sure about that. I mean, how's the rest of you feel?
Yeah, if you have a single family home, you can have your garage in the front, you can drive in the front,
But if I have a townhouse,
right?
It's gonna be in the back.
Using the alleys.
I gotta use the alley in the back. So that means you've gotta have an alley.
Yes.
If I want to develop without alleys, how do I get around this?
Right.
I don't think you do.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully you won't.
That-
'Cause that's
I
the
think that's
village.
the whole point.
So this, right, this was kind of the
Well, that's what I'm
compromise
trying to
approach
bring out.
that,
I'm not really in favor of the alleys.
But it wouldn't be a
But to
lot
do-
of alleys.
Pardon me?
It wouldn't be a lot of alleys.
It's only
It doesn't matter if there's one alley, it's one alley too many.
So it
It's just
would
for
be
the attached.
in the more dense housing, whereas like, instead of the entire development having alleys, compromising what's out there and what the builders want to do. You know, because the alleys, they do it add a nice aspect. It does clean up the front of the housing area. But either we trash our community village, which is not wise, in my opinion, or we amend it to what we're hearing from multiple builders and our city crew. You know, it's a lot of, just imagine if there are alleys behind all the townhouses in Meads right now. It's a lot. The other thing is the alleys are gonna be smaller. So down the road with a weaker HOA, then you're gonna have parking disputes like we already have at Meads with the narrower alleys like on Jack Street. Somebody on Fridays likes to park their take-home vehicle, and I understand he or she probably has a lot of money in that van, wants it close to the site, and people next door can't get out of the driveway. So, you know, those are the long-term things, Chairman.
Okay. I'm just, okay.
I mean, I think the alleys make sense in the context that we're talking about.
I guess when you put it that way, yeah, but I'm just concerned about the additional burden on putting the alleys in. The garbage truck, your dumpster's gonna be in the back, so you got a you got your garbage truck going down your alley picking up your trash. You got the kids setting their basketball up, playing basketball in the alley. You got your neighbor parking there when you wanna get out and you can't. I'm just concerned about the alleys,
okay,
period.
right. And the trash truck going down the alley was actually envisioned to be a good thing, you know, to get the trash cans in the back instead of out on the main road.
Well, I'm just thinking about the trash truck. not-
Right,
I
but
understand
we
what
do
you're saying.
have, we
Yeah.
do have situations in the city where there are some folks that live on a narrow street that has tight turning radiuses at both ends, and there's really not a reasonable way to get a trash truck down there, and they have to drag their trash cans much farther than I think probably anybody else in the city, because the trash truck can't get down the, I mean, it is an alley. I mean, I guess it's, yeah, Mater actually is an alley, isn't it? I think it's actually called alley,
Purpose of
Mater.
it, though, is to get the
Yeah.
cars so they're not parked in their front yard, you know, so it's, everything's always a trade-off, right? So do you want your cars parked in front, or do you want them parked in the back?
Okay, all right, I'm with you. That was just my opinion. Doesn't mean I'll live there. All right,
Well, the whole purpose of having a community village is to cram everything together so you have less maintenance for the town. I mean, that's the whole purpose of it.
okay. So we're okay with E
I'm good with it.
as, okay, Lee, Bill. All right,
G's a tough one, Jez.
yeah. Yeah, driveway, okay. And same with H, right?
Tougher.
All right. So I gather everyone read all the rest, were okay all the way down?
Yep. And then-
We good on this page? Bill, you good?
That's
Okay.
really, yeah, that's about it.
That brings us to the end.
So it's not a huge amount of text that would need to be modified to give the relief for the single-family homes in a community village.
So what do you want from us on this? You just want the?
So if there's, or other suggestions, or, you know, just, I guess the general idea of giving the relief to single-family homes and semi-detached, but still requiring the alleys for anything, you know, more dense, so townhouses, triples, quads. Not that we have any quads in the city right now, but,
Okay.
So I guess before we vote or anything there, so this also talks about the number of parking places that you have, right? So, so I think it was Garnet Ridge, first they had parking on one side, and then the next thing we saw, they don't allow any parking on the street. So if there's no parking on the street, I mean, do we think that the number of parking spaces, off-site parking spaces is sufficient?
2 in the garage and 1 in front of the garage.
Yeah, so you
That's
think,
3.
you think that's sufficient, or I personally think 4 is sufficient, I don't think 3 is.
well, that is also an age-restricted community, so it does have a slightly smaller, retirement dwellings are required to have 2 spaces off-street. So if they have, you know, 2 in the garage and 1 in the driveway,
Yeah, it's,
That's
they
3.
actually
that's 3,
exceed,
that's no.
you know.
But your driveway's double garage away.
Yeah, so in the
so
age,
you get
yeah,
4.
but in the age restricted, if you have 2 people
Right.
come there, the other one
Right.
has to walk out to the parking lot in your age restricted area.
Yep.
Yeah.
Certainly going to be some scenarios where, you know, somebody has a holiday party or a birthday party or whatever, you know, and they have, you know, family and friends coming over.
Right.
Well, there's probably going to be, you know, 5, 6, 8 cars.
Yeah, so
And,
those I
you
think
know,
is normal, but I guess to me, it just seems like 4 was a better number than 3 to me. That's, again, that's my personal opinion.
Well, like I say, if you have a 2-car garage, you got 2 in the garage and 2 in front of the garage. There's your
Yeah.
4.
I'm good with that. So, but this says,
It says
3.
3. So you got your 3 plus
yeah,
1 additional. So I guess what the consensus are we agreeable with this? If it is,
yep, yep, for now, I guess.
right, I mean, everything's due for a change.
I don't think I'm voting tonight.
If the mayor and council decide to proceed with this, and it gets put into ordinance form, it'll of course come back to you because it is a zoning ordinance. So it'll come back to you in ordinance form for your comments and recommendation, you know, when we get to that point.
Okay? So, we all good with this? All right.
Yeah.
We're good. Next item, Community Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 3. We got time, right? We only have 2 more items ahead.
I'm going to need to excuse myself, I'm sorry.
Right. Maybe before we move to that, if you got to leave, let's do the annual report. Carol, you want to
Sure. So this is
bring the annual report?
This is the annual report we provide to the county from activity that happened in the city. And you read the 7 or so items. They're all true, at least most of them. No, they're all true. And part of that requirement is a letter that the chairman has to sign. Basically just to go real fast, Frederick Street Commons, that was a minor subdivision. New building for Duffy Box. These are all things that happened this past year, last year.
You have it listed as a new building. Isn't that just an addition to the existing building?
There's a gap between the two.
It is a
They
gap
run.
between it?
Yeah, so it's,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
The
we're
Soul
good
Farm,
then. I'm good then.
all right, sir. Soul Farm was annexed in. Then the resolutions or the amendments that were made over the last couple of months between us and mayor and city council. And then Bollinger Park, that was just early last year. Then Roberts Mill Park, I added the large small dog park. This is an improvement to our park. And that's it.
So I guess the commission needs to give me the authorization to sign this, right?
Yes.
So somebody'd like to put that in a
So moved to authorize to sign.
All right.
Synopsis.
Lee, second by Brian. Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Will do. All right. Yep, see ya. Thank you. All right. Chapter 3. Okay.
So this is the one I.
I'm sorry?
Did you have it in your packet?
I think this was on the agenda 3-4 months ago when we had to carry over, so I hope you can remember. I got some notes and I can't even read my notes I made now, but. So we go through the same process we did for the rest, the red line.
Yeah, so on this here, chapter 3, it goes down, and then when you start chapter 5, and then you just have a bunch of ideas, right? I mean, is that just like reminders of stuff we have to talk about when we get to chapter 5?
So there, the recommendations are broken out by the chapter that they are included in.
Yeah.
So each chapter has its own recommendations. So there's recommendations on land use and growth management, recommendations on transportation. Chapter 3 kind of takes a look back at those 2010 recommendations and is where we will address like whether we met those recommendations or implemented them, or if we didn't, and if we still want to entertain them or not.
Yeah, so when I read down through this, chapter 3, it says, hey, here's what we did last year, right?
Last plan, yeah.
But then everything that's starting in chapter 5 from there on, it's stuff that we're planning on doing, right?
These are things that were planned in the 2010 comprehensive plan.
Okay.
So the new comprehensive plan that we're working to update now is going to look at those, what are now old recommendations, and evaluate if we achieved them or not. And if we didn't, are they still things that we want to work towards?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I guess-
what's before you basically is taking, so the 2010 plan looked back at the 1997 plan. So the struck through things are, I took out all the old 1997 stuff and then I plugged in what's now the newer old stuff from 2010.
Right.
So we need to kind of look through that, see if we accomplished it. If we did, great. If we didn't, is it still a viable, goal for us? This is the one that I thought would probably take some time.
Okay, well, I guess for the first thing at the bottom of the page, you said create a residential office zone. I mean, this is the first I've heard anything like that. What's the intent there, or, I don't remember anything in 2010 talking about an office zone.
Yeah, at the time, I believe there was a lot of pressure to do what had created that restricted general business district all along Baltimore Street, where there were properties on the market, and at the time, I guess they were languishing on the market, but there was interest to convert them to office space. And the idea was to try to come up with some idea that would, allow reuse of those properties. And we never, the pressure kind of went away and we never moved on it.
So would that be any different than downtown general business?
Well, it would be, I think it was intended to allow offices in what otherwise would be a residential district.
So like the first floor be an office and residential upstairs? I mean,
Or just like LaFavor's was, like LaFavor Construction was.
Okay,
So that took an existing home on a primary street and converted it to a commercial use. In that case, we rezoned that block
yeah.
to allow it, and this was trying to, I think, avoid doing the same thing for the entirety of Baltimore Street.
Okay.
So I don't know if, I don't think we have the same pressures that we did. And I guess also when we were having these conversations, it was also when the housing bubble had burst and we were not out of that, when we were working through these things.
Okay. That's all I had on the front page.
Well, so the first couple of chapters, paragraphs are fine, right? You're just cleaning it up, right? So,
Just updating.
yep.
Yeah.
So then you got chapter 5, land use and growth management. So the first state says encourage walkability between residential and commercial areas. So I guess I'm a little bit confused. Are we saying that we did accomplish that? We are going to try to accomplish that?
Right,
Or
that in 2010, we were going to try to accomplish that.
we were going to try to accomplish that?
Right, this was a recommended action in 2010.
All
so
these
for
is
each-
what we intended to do or was doing,
Yeah, so,
right?
Right,
just, so for each one of them, we got to say, okay, we still think that's a good idea and we want to put it in there.
exactly,
Yeah.
right. And there may be some that we actually did accomplish, but, but even those were probably like to limited extents. So,
Okay.
I mean, almost all of these is something that our goal is to work towards.
right,
Yeah, and that's what, when I went down through there, that's my question. It looked like they were all goals, not accomplishments.
Yeah. Well, some of them were in a phase.
So,
That's like say with that last one, I didn't recognize that.
yeah.
The office zone. And there again, what was that one work on? Protect the intent of the Taneytown Greenway alignment. That's something we want to continue to work on.
Right.
so I guess the one that says develop a cluster ordinance to allow or require cluster development in areas designated for lower density residential development. I don't know what that means.
We really didn't do too much about that.
Right.
No, we didn't.
That was envisioned, I think, for the yellow areas on the map. So the R20,000, which would be roughly a half-acre lot, to do something that, while you were not incorrect in saying that Community Village allows the, condensing of everything to minimize utilities and such for the city. That is a good benefit for the city there. But the intent is also to preserve more open space, more contiguous open space, and clustering in the lower density areas would have a similar effect of, preserving more open space rather than one house every 20,000 square feet, and then having all that road frontage and utilities spanning a greater distance. You could, instead of looking lot by lot, you could look at the lot yield of the whole parcel and say, at 20,000 square feet, here's how many units you could get, but we're gonna let you pull the units into a more consolidated footprint and preserve, more open space.
Tracking.
So that's what the cluster ordinance would
Okay.
have achieved.
But there's also some negative of clustering.
Oh, yeah.
Right, right.
It's never a win-win. Everybody says that all the time, but it's never.
And with that regard,
You don't have any?
looking at that,
With this either?
looking at that yellow on the map, the Sewell Farm, as you may recall, it was a little controversial when it was being annexed because on the map, it was shown as R20, well, I guess that was medium density residential, but it would equate to R20,000. And it was annexed as R10,000.
Right.
So basically double the, half the lot size requirement. So we need to kind of look at the map with an eye that now would be orange and not yellow and green. And this kind of feeds into, land use and growth management. So, does it make sense for the city to continue pursuing a, lower density outlying area like that? Or would it be better to, I think when we get to the point of the water resources element, that's going to dictate what we see as likely growth potential also. But does it make sense to offer a low-density area and then say, but we want you to consolidate the development, rather than just re-look at those land uses and say, well, R20,000 really doesn't make sense to provide city water and sewer to 20,000 square foot lots? Does it make more sense for us not to have that option? It warrants some discussion, I think, because, on the one hand, you're saying you want to offer a variety of housing at different densities and things like that. But then also, does that lower density make sense for the city? For the home buyer, there probably are home buyers that would like a 20,000 square foot lot that we don't have to offer. But there's also, a lot of buyers that like more house and less yard. So.
Yep. I'm okay with everything on that page.
Before we go any further in this, it looks like there's at least 3 of us up here that does not have this.
It's in your November package. When we didn't cover it, I had asked that they be brought back, but I understand it's a long time ago.
I'd like to table this, just because there's 2 on this side, pick that up, add it to next month. If you don't have it,
I'll let you.
reach out and we'll make sure we get it.
November package.
Yeah, because like I said, this is at least 3 months,
Yeah.
so we can pick that up then. And
Sorry, it's a long time ago, man.
But, no, the discussion was good for me because I understand better what we have here in front of us now,
Good.
so I'm good.
So if you just can't find it, let me know.
Yep, sure will.
Okay, mark it up and we'll talk about it next month. Last item, discussion of public outreach to encourage citizens' input. Jim or Daryl, your comments on that?
We put a blurb out 2 months ago, Jim, about, trying to reach out. Mr. Tillman's been talking about it where, and I'm starting to see a buzz. Chris, I don't know if you are or not, but where people are starting to, having been an elected official a couple, 3 times, now with social media, it's not fair of you guys being on this board or an elected official to have to go home and troll Facebook. I wouldn't have gotten it if I wouldn't have been made to or highly recommended for the last time I ran for office. But I do find it enjoyable, the challenging comments people make that they wouldn't say to your face. But having said that, word is getting out. Again, Chris, every time he gets a chance, he posts, hey, if you go to the meetings, go to the meetings, go to the meetings. We had, many people that were against the process for Seoul annex. Where are they at? Your budget, my taxes due, my water's dry. Where are they at? I guarantee you, if you come down, and Jim, I'll probably see you in the background. You'll be here for the budget meeting, and I bet you there won't be 5 other people out there. All right? That's when we talk about money. That's when we talk about what we'll be charged for water and sewage. And, again, the rascals on Facebook will tear you up, but really, come here, open your mouth, and let us know what you want.
We need to talk it up as when we're out in public.
Yeah.
I ask people to come to the meetings. Whatever their input is very important to what we decide to do.
But just let me ask you another question. I've been saying this for a long time. A 7:30 meeting is something you did back in the 50s and 60s when Ma had meatloaf on the stove with a table, whatever time you got home. It's not that way anymore. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'm over 40, Chris. And, as 55-year-old man, I don't enjoy getting home at 9:30, 10 o'clock, like I did not mine when I was 21. You know what I mean? So think about the times. When I was on the Parks and Rec board, I recommended, and they went with the earlier time. And I think the participation was more. So it's just something to think about. I mean, there are more than just getting the word out. It's what time it gets out or when it gets out, as a for instance.
Good point. Chris, what comment?
Yeah, in fairness to the, Sewell's Farm people, that kind of left a bad taste in their mouth, just kind of how it all ended, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can only expect so much.
Yeah, I got you, Chris, and I understand that. But what I'm saying is, that many people and nothing. That's just,
Okay.
age old.
So
Here we go.
So Jim Thomas on Deal Road. I wanted to comment real quickly on your last discussion, since we didn't have a chance to do that. I think when I was involved with some of the planning of Meads Crossing and really looking at your comprehensive plan, having discussions with Jim over time, I think the spirit of that vision is really give you all flexibility in different situations. So if you, for example, look at the notion of creating transitional zones into the countryside versus R10,000 up to the farmland. So if you start legislating or creating zoning ordinances that are inflexible, you're going to miss, I think, the opportunity for a really big vision. And a lot of this has to be applied, I think, almost property by property in a situation. Because, for example, on Sewell's Farm, you have a waterway on that northern boundary, which automatically solves that issue, for example. So I just want to encourage you, like the cluster housing, for example, if you can do that, just gives you another tool that you can apply when it's appropriate, rather than feeling you have to really say every situation is going to be a certain kind of way. So the spirit of those transitional areas to the countryside, I think, is really, really important in the big picture. It might not be great in terms of the cost of alleys or a short-term kind of cost, but I think in terms of creating livable space, both for people in the city and outside of the town, that's a really important thing. So I hope you can just keep that open and keep your tool bag flexible so you can solve these issues in that way. Second thing about the meetings, the group that I started with Tara and my partner Christine, this Envision Taneytown, was really trying to figure out a bridge for the way that what happens here and what happens in terms of the communication into the community. So one thing I've been aware of, if I look at the agenda that's posted online, it's not really clear how that agenda affects the people in the town. There's a list of topics, but it's really not clear how that impacts me or what input you're looking for around those projects. So if there's some way to create a synopsis of that agenda to say, you know, there's a pizza place coming, this is what we're looking at, this is how it will affect you, so people know why to come. Because now, maybe Facebook provides some of that after the fact, but up front, it's not really clear why bother to come based on the way you've created the agenda. So that's one thing to look at. Other than that, and then maybe the meeting could be segmented in some way because some of the issues you all address, it might not be quite appropriate for the public in terms of their interest or feedback. You could have at the beginning of the meeting that would be very much oriented on the early side of 7 o'clock that would be addressing the issues of most concern to folks and try staggering the agenda in that way. Beer and pizza would be good. Now that we have a new pizza place in town. But maybe I'm a little laughing about that. Maybe there's some way to loosen this up a little bit with something like that. Like every other month that there's some change, a little snack here or something, just to be creative. But I think from the agenda thing, I think if you could somehow have someone on staff tweak that in some way. Now it's extra time to do that, but I think if you think about that, that would really appeal to more folks about why be here, how I can contribute with different topics and how they impact me versus just a list of topics. So that's a couple suggestions.
We used to put the times on the agenda of different things, but then we discontinued that because having the time set, and then it would go over or under, you know, so that didn't work out. And then before most of the guys' time here, we used to have cookies.
For everybody or just you all?
Well, one of the commissioners brought cookies in, and I think they were open to anyone else. I mean, the room was a lot smaller, but we had cookies. And then the last thing you mentioned was the different zoning. When Meach Crossing first got started, we had a section set out there, R20. Remember that? We were thinking about some R20s back next to the farm.
As a transitional zone?
Yes.
Yeah.
But then I think the developer or something kind of faded away from that because of issues. Remember that?
It went through a couple iterations. I think at one point it was industrial on the farm side, and then I don't remember if it was R20 on the other. But I do remember there being discussion about R10 versus R20.
Yeah. Because,
It was annexed before I sat on council, so it was like the early 90s, I guess, like 94, 95, that it was annexed. So that was predates my time with the city. But I do remember there being discussion about a zoning change during one of our comprehensive plan updates. That may have been the 1997 plan.
You know, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but again, the R20 serves a purpose. If you have this vision you're committed to about transitional land use, it can be, doesn't have to be R20, there are other ways to accomplish that. But that really much depends on the particular property. So if you get locked into solutions that aren't flexible around what the property is calling for, like the example on Sewell's Farm with this, the trees is 14 acres to be cut down. That's insane to not look at the value of the property in whole and then just throw this zoning on it, which requires the trees to be cut down. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's the input I hope is helpful, just to give you all some design tools almost, that you can approach each situation in a unique way that really serves this bigger vision of creating livable communities and doesn't lock you into stuff that doesn't make sense property by property. So, thank you.
Thanks for your input. Anyone else?
I just wanted, Chris Tillman again. I think that a move to 7 o'clock probably would be a beneficial thing to get, you might be able to get some more people to come. Like Jim was saying, a little bit of explanation about what the items on the agenda are and what they're about. You know, this to me, it makes sense because I know what's going on, but to someone who doesn't know what's going on, there's like, well, what's that? So they don't realize perhaps how some of the things on the agenda may impact them or not impact them. And I do want to just tag on to something that Jim was talking about with the using the cluster to try to do that, being a little more sensitive to the transition from urban to the rural, because right now it just kind of bam happens. And I look at Whispering Breeze Farm as a good example. They're farming cows and then house right along the fence line. It's very incongruous to look at and maybe perhaps somewhat so to live in. So those are the things. The other thing is to, not just put this out, on the city's Facebook page, but make sure it's somebody's duty to make sure it gets out to all of the neighborhood, to the neighborhood page, because Meadowbrook has their own page and Meads Crossing has their own page. And there's the Taneytown community page and the Taneytown neighborhood page, and the neighborhood page being the largest, it has 6,000 or 7,000 members to that page. So, there's a pretty good reach there. But I think if there's some explanation to what is being discussed and so that people have an idea how it impacts them, and also for people to know that what they say makes an impact on you gentlemen. I mean, it's the thing that we hear a lot, and I know Chris has heard this a lot, is that people don't feel that they have a voice. That's never stopped me. But I think people need to know that if they do come here and speak, and if they do come here, that they do have a voice. I think Chris made a good point about the fact that there were a lot of people here for the Sewell's Farm annexation discussions, and some of them felt like they were just run over. And so they're like, well, why should we get involved? Because it doesn't really matter. I think that's the other piece to this is for people to know that when they do come and get involved in the meeting, that their participation does result in something. So, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? If not,
Sorry, I got just one more. Like you said, I went door to door with these people doing this, the Sewell's Farm stuff, and a lot of them just feel defeated when it comes to talking about stuff. And part of it is just kind of restoring, it's going to sound corny, but restoring that hope that somebody is actually hearing them out here, you know what I mean? And that's, it's going to take a little, especially again after what happened with Sewell's and stuff like that, so.
okay, thanks. Okay, it looks like next meeting, February 27th. Sound good? Sound good? All right, if there's nothing else, Bill, Chris, Brad, Dan?
Nothing.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Brad made the motion.
Second.
Bill seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Likewise carried. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Tiffany, can I